Alright, so in this video, I'm going to be taking a look at some of the greatest college football single game performances or statistics in recent memory. Really going back to like the year 2008, 2009. Many of these games happened, though, within the last 6 or 7 years, and there are some interesting statistics. Taking a look first at the Oklahoma Texas Tech game. This was your typical mid 2010s Big 12 football, just absolutely no defense, 66 to 59. The most outrageous stat here is Patrick Mahomes, the 88 pass attempts. It's just ridiculous. You could also say maybe the 734 passing yards. Imagine if he would have gotten to like 95 pass attempts. Mahomes also had 85 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. Baker Mayfield, 36 attempts for 545 yards, 7 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Joe Mixon had 263 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. I think Joe Mixon also had like 130 receiving yards. Dede Westbrook, what a name that is. Dede Westbrook, what an underrated, underappreciated college receiver. He made the Heisman ceremony when they invited like 5 players. I remember that. He had 202 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. Texas Tech, even with Patrick Mahomes, not very good. And that's kind of why everyone considered Patrick Mahomes to be kind of like a gimmicky Texas Tech quarterback under Cliff Kingsbury. I mean, he still went 10th overall, but people kind of thought that was a reach. I remember that. He had good arm talent, but Texas Tech QBs always put up ridiculous numbers. So that's why Mahomes never was like, a consensus number one overall guy. The next game, this game actually just happened. And you might be wondering, it's a decently high scoring game, 42 to 35 in the snow, but what's the big deal? Take a look at Iowa State's quarterback. 8 of 12, 230 yards. Their running back, 16 carries, 276 rushing yards. Why do I say that? If you look at yards per play, Iowa State had 10 total first downs, but 488 yards of offense. I don't know how I missed this last week. This just happened. Yards per rush, 11.2 for Iowa State. Yards per pass, 19.2. So they were averaging like 14 yards per play in the snow. And it was like 3 inches of snow was on the ground accumulated. Just a crazy performance. I don't even know how that happens. How bad does your run defense have to be if you are Kansas State? Kansas State has 22 more first downs and loses that game. Pretty crazy. And then a lot of people don't know this exists, but ESPN has this little metric where you can look at the greatest games of all time on a efficiency per play basis. Obviously, it's not every game, but it goes back to probably 2006, 2005. And apparently Brett Smith of Wyoming in a game in 2013 against Air Force had the greatest performance in recent memory. I mean, this is a very nice game. You can see what he did. He was 35 of 41, 373, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. He also had 138 rushing yards and a touchdown. But I don't know how this is the number one most efficient per play performance of all time. He just had 5 total touchdowns. He did have a lot of total yards, like 500, but that just seems kind of random that he has the number one overall performance. Malik Cunningham I think this was in 2022. It was a weeknight game against Duke on the road. He goes 18 of 25, 303, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions, 11 carries, 224 yards, 2 touchdowns. How many fantasy points is that that was when Duke was terrible. Yeah, Malik Cunningham, he's been cut by the New England Patriots 4 or 5 times this year and then re-signed. Kind of interesting. Khalil Tate also had a ridiculous performance. Khalil Tate, man, if he would have been playing right now, imagine him in the transfer portal, the dual threat. So in this game against Colorado, they were actually, one year Colorado was pretty good, but this might have been the year. Philip Lindsay this game had almost 300 rushing yards. Wow. Yeah, but you can see Khalil Tate, 12 of 13. All right, it's efficient. 154 yards, 1 touchdown, no interception, 14 carries, 327 yards, and 4 touchdowns. I'm not even sure how that's possible. That's like Mike Vick on Madden, the 2004 version. It's just ridiculous. Khalil Tate, the numbers there. And then this is a strange one. So this is Texas Tech versus Iowa State towards the end of the year, like probably in 2015. A totally disregarded game between two bad teams. Patrick Mahomes was actually QBing in this game and played pretty badly, but Joel Lanning, a dual threat quarterback who barely threw any passes. Look at this, 17 carries, 171 yards, 5 touchdowns. Is that Alan Lazard going for 137 and a touchdown? But yeah, this dude had one of the greatest quarterback performances. Not much emphasis on quarterback considering he only attempted 4 passes. He did go 3 of 4, but they just used him in like the Wildcat. I mean, how do you not stop that if you're Texas Tech? But that's Texas Tech's defense. Remember when they used to be terrible? The next one, this one is a rushing performance, Samaje Perine. We remember the FBS record, 427 rushing yards, 5 touchdowns. Oklahoma had like a backup QB starting the game. It was a rain game. I mean, look at those QB performances from Kansas. This is when Kansas was just horrible. To be fair, Kansas was really horrible till like 2020, but yeah, Samaje Perine, it just set up perfectly for him where it was a rain game, Oklahoma didn't want to throw, and he goes for 427 rushing yards, just ridiculous numbers there. And then you also did have Melvin Gordon against Nebraska in that snow game where it started really snowing in the second half, go for 408 and 4 touchdowns. I'm surprised Melvin Gordon didn't win a Heisman. It's such a good name for a running back, Melvin Gordon III. Yeah, 408 rushing yards, 4 touchdowns. Wisconsin, they were in their prime. They really were. They were always ranked. Geno Smith, the September Heisman. This was the last weekend in September. It was 2013. It was West Virginia. They were a top 10 team taking on Baylor. We remember Baylor under Art Briles. They had 0 defense. They had really good offense. Geno Smith has 6 incompletions and 8 touchdowns. Yes, 6 incompletions, 8 touchdowns. 45 of 51. 656 yards, 8 touchdowns. Stedman Bailey goes 13 receptions, 303 receiving yards, and 5 touchdowns. Just a ridiculous single game performance. And then this game, what a boring game this was. I believe this is the lowest scoring bowl game of all time, or at least one of them. 3-0. The 2008 Sun Bowl, Oregon State beating Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh was ranked, top 20. Oregon State was 9-4, so they finished off the year pretty well. LaShawn McCoy playing in it. Wow. You wouldn't see running backs play in bowl games like the Sun Bowl nowadays, especially if they're draft eligible. Good to see LaShawn McCoy getting out there. 24 carries, 85 yards, kind of silenced there. This game, oh my goodness. Yeah, this was a weird one. So Rutgers, they went through a period early on in their time in the Big Ten when they were basically unwatchable. I mean, they were the equivalent of an FCS team, and this was Michigan's 2016 team, the team that barely lost to Ohio State on the road. It was like Michigan wasn't even trying, but they just kept scoring. 78-0 in a conference game is just pathetic. And again, Michigan attempted like 13 total passes the entire game, but Rutgers couldn't stop Michigan's 4th string walk-on running back. It was very strange. It was like they had just given up completely. And Michigan kept getting the turnovers off fumbles, and then they would score like a 30-yard rushing touchdown. They had a backup that had like 3 one-yard touchdowns on the day. Very strange game, but yeah, Michigan crushes Rutgers in that one. This is considered the single greatest rushing performance for a quarterback of all time, at least recently, and it's Keenan Reynolds. Keenan Reynolds, 36 carries, 240 yards, 7 touchdowns against San Jose State. Wow. And David Fells goes for 445 touchdowns, 1 interception in that game. How many fantasy points is that? That he only attempted 6 passes. I mean, that's what happens with Navy. Yeah, Keenan Reynolds was a really good quarterback. But guys, that is going to do it. Just looking back on some of the craziest recent college football performances. Obviously, none of these numbers would happen in the NFL. These are just ridiculous statistics. Either way, that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.